Welcome to the cultural broadcasting program of the Voice of Vietnam. Dear audience, at the beginning of today's cultural broadcasting program, we'd like to invite you and the two authors, Xuan Bach and Thuy Nhuong, to meet the hero of the People's Armed Forces, Mr. Phan Van Quy, Chairman of the Board of Pacific Corporation, through the memoir, That Soldier. Dear audience, at the age of 23, when he was a Chuang Sun's military driver and soldier, he was conferred the title of Hero of the People's Armed Forces. At the age of 45, he officially entered the business world after retiring with the rank of lieutenant colonel. At the age of 57, he was a self-nominated candidate who had been elected as a member of the National Assembly. The Pacific Corporation, which he is the chairman of, has been partnering with many world-famous corporations in billion-dollar projects. This is a brief introduction about Mr. Phan Van Quy, whom we would like to introduce to you through the memoir That Soldier, by two authors, Xuan Bach and Thuy Nhuong. That soldier always behaves and conducts himself to the highest integrity of Uncle Ho's soldier, showing the soldier's quality clearly on all fronts, from the battlefield to the National Assembly and the business world. In 2012, I had the opportunity to work with the chairman of the Board of Pacific Corporation, Mr. Phan Van Quy. At that time, he was a member of the 13th National Assembly. His speeches on the National Assembly forums mentioned hot topics in marine economy, localization, bidding. His ideas attracted a lot of attention, including mine. His deepest concern among all was the issue of localization. He said, without supporting industries, there would be no localization. Without localization, attracting foreign investment into Vietnam could not be highly effective and sustainable. Since then, he began to spend time investing into a new field as an EPC contractor of energy projects. Exactly 2 years later, on March 9, 2014, the news about the groundbreaking ceremony of Vĩnh Tân 4 thermal power plant received huge media attention. The project was invested by Vietnam Electricity and a consortium including Mitsubishi Corporation, Japan, Doosan Heavy Industries and Construction Company Limited, Korea, Power Engineering Consulting Joint Stock Company 2, and Pacific Corporation performed as EPC contractors. This was the first project which had the involvement of a Vietnamese private enterprise as an EPC contractor, together with the world's leading industrial groups. On the day of the commencement of the project, Deputy Prime Minister Hoàng Trung Hải, now a member of the Politburo, Secretary of the Hanoi Party Committee, attended the event. In his speech, the Deputy Prime Minister affirmed, Vĩnh Tân 4 thermal power plant is the first of 3 urgent power projects of the government. So I come here to witness and monitor this project. A successful project would create a premise to duplicate and expand this model in the coming years. During the project's groundbreaking ceremony, I noticed indescribable joy in the eyes of the hero of the People's Armed Forces, Mr. Phan Van Quy. He said, "The work done by domestic enterprises will amount to around 500 million USD. This also means that employment issues will be tackled, localization activities fostered, and conditions created for domestic enterprises to compete and grow." After the groundbreaking day, Pacific Corporation immediately began to work on the implementation of the infrastructure package. The geology, soils, and topography in the project were diverse and unstable, with many layers of soil that many machineries could not execute. So much sweat was poured down the construction site. Many days he, the experts, and engineers stayed up all night to find out construction solutions. On the day of handing over the project site, he was very happy. He was happy that the corporation's work had been completed on time, recognized, and rewarded by the owner. Happy that the corporation's success had contributed to helping Vĩnh Tân 4 thermal power plant become the first power project to be completed ahead of the schedule. Connected to the national grid, serving the country's socio-economic development. And so far, Vĩnh Tân 4 thermal power plant project was also the only project to be expanded right during the construction process, with a new plant next to it with the capacity of 600 megawatts. Vĩnh Tân 4 thermal power plant is one of the 5 national projects recognized by the Ministry of Construction as typical works on the 60th anniversary of the traditional day of construction industry in Vietnam, April 29, 1958 to April 29, 2018. On the happy day of the power construction industry, all the units participating in the joint venture as the EPC contractors of the project, including Pacific Corporation led by Mr. Phan Van Quy, also shared the joy. Since then, EPC has become a key business area of Pacific Corporation, and not only succeeded in domestic projects, but Pacific Corporation is also reaching out to integrate and implement projects in the region together with major domestic and foreign partners. On the groundbreaking ceremony day of Vĩnh Tân 4 thermal power plant, I had the opportunity to join Chairman Phan Van Quy to visit a large area that was planned for Vĩnh Tân Paradise project. The driver drove very well and didn't mind the rocky terrain. The car bounced on the road and then brought us to the sea gate. The saltiness of the sea, the rustle of the wind woke us up like a cup of coffee in the morning. "This is so cool," Chairman Quy exclaimed. Binh Thuan Sea has big waves, especially in the windy season. An official in the transport industry once said, "At the high wave level, it is very difficult for ships and boats to dock, so they have to build a breakwater. But the breakwater costs a lot of money, and almost only the government can afford it." At that moment, I saw Mr. Quy looking far away, thinking endlessly. After a year, from a vacant lot full of overgrown grass, there came the roar of excavators, bulldozers, and the old wasteland became a project of Vĩnh Tân International Port. Now, Vĩnh Tân International Port has ships entering and leaving the port. Recently, the port has solemnly inaugurated and kept expanding to serve socio-economic development in Binh Thuan province in particular, the South Central region, and the Central Highlands in general. The Binh Thuan province's competent authorities and people were happy due to the establishment of the port. In Binh Thuan's newspaper, there was a big headline, "Dreams of airports, seaports, highways are becoming reality." In order to develop business during the transition period of the country, production and industry are 2 highly crucial factors. From that thought, the hero of the People's Armed Forces, Mr. Phan Van Quy, has been leading Pacific Corporation towards the top position in the field of energy industry, contributing a part of its strength to the construction of the country. At the end of 1999, a young man from Nhân Thanh Commune, Nhân Thanh District, Nghệ An Province, Phan Van Quy, left the army, studied at Hanoi Law University, and established a petroleum business. But after nearly 1 year of suffering losses, his company had to be dissolved. The first failure did not make him flinch. He established a second business, specializing in construction, but the result was no different from the first time. Some even warned him that driving a vehicle and running a business, being a hero and an entrepreneur are very different things. One must know where to stop. Mr. Phan Văn Quý recalled the years gone by, the hardships of his childhood, the life and death trials on ferocious battlefields, and the recent failures in doing business. It seemed that at each turning point in his life, new difficulties and challenges arose. At such times, he thought only the will to win, confidence in himself, and his best effort could help him overcome these trials and succeed. He always keeps in mind that, as an Uncle Ho and Chung Sun's soldier, I cannot retreat and must keep fighting. His soldier's integrity once again burned brightly in the new battlefield. On this front, before deciding on a policy, Mr. Phan Văn Quý knows he has to remain calm, cautious, positive, and thorough. When he does something, he does it with utmost dedication and commitment to be able to achieve the set objective. Mr. Phan Văn Quý shared that a mistake in the battle can easily cost the blood and lives of myself and my comrades. The failure in business does not only shatter a business's standing, it can also affect the lives of many other people. Therefore, in my viewpoint, Pacific Corporation must develop in a stable and sustainable way. It is with those perspectives that over the years, Chairman Phan Văn Quý has been firmly guiding Pacific Corporation in overcoming difficulties and challenges, as in those days when he overcame the hairpin curves in the fiercely targeted locations of Phu La Nic, Chung Sun. There is a story which many people still refer to, expressing their admiration for Chairman Phan Văn Quý uncanny ability to win over people. This happened during the implementation of the Ha Phong Urban Development Project in Tiên Phong Commune, Mê Linh District, Hanoi. The most critical problem was the compensation for more than 1,000 households who had to be relocated. Approaching the project, Chairman Phan Văn Quý advocated the application of maximum benefits according to regulations, as well as closely listening to the concerns, aspirations, interests of the residents, as well as respecting their customs. In doing this, he relied on and coordinated with various organizations from the village to district to department levels. He patiently persuaded the people together with their family, clan, and friends. He also invited them to apply for open vacancies at Pacific Corporation, supporting them to have a stable life. His sincere and thoughtful consideration moved everyone. From this story, Mr. Phan Văn Quý concluded that the key success factor of leadership is winning people's trust. Joining the 13th National Assembly as a self-nominated businessman, the story of Mr. Phan Văn Quý election is rather exceptional. On an election occasion at the 3rd Electoral Unit in Nghệ An Province, he stated that, "If voters have to choose between us, please cast your votes for Mr. Phan Chung Lee and other candidates. They have capabilities and years of contribution which are absolutely essential to our National Assembly. As for me, if I am not elected, I am still a businessman with my daily work." Later, when confiding to many people, a National Assembly delegate at the 3rd Electoral Unit said that, "Never have I ever met a candidate who campaigned voters to select someone else like him." Among the initiatives of him and other delegates recognized by the National Assembly, it is worth pointing out the proposal to develop the defense industry, the marine economy, and localization. I once visited him at the end of a working day, returning to the company after having attended a meeting of the National Assembly. He spent time preparing for his speech for the following day. He edited every sentence, every word, and set the clock to rehearse over and over, so that it didn't exceed more than 7 minutes. He said, "The National Assembly only gives 7 minutes to make a speech. If our speech exceeds the allotted time by 1 minute, it will reduce the time of other delegates, and nearly 500 delegates will take up to about 500 minutes. That's a waste." Perhaps due to his thinking about others before himself and the general before the specific, when commenting about him, Mr. Pham Van Than, head of the 13th National Assembly delegation of Nghệ An Province, said that Mr. Qui always concerns for the common goods. In 2007, when the Central Region had just suffered from a historic flood, causing a lot of damage to people and property, Mr. Phan Van Qui and other philanthropists took part in a donation campaign for the Central. As the campaign was successful beyond expectation, Mr. Phan Van Qui, along with some individuals, came up with the idea of establishing an organization to provide long-term support for people in the Central Region. Since then, the Central Vietnam Disaster Prevention Support Fund was founded, with Mr. Phan Dien, former member of the Politburo, standing member of the Secretariat, as chairman and Mr. Phan Van Qui as vice chairman. After 10 years of establishment, the fund has received hundreds of billion dong from domestic and international benefactors, built nearly 100 storm and flood-resilient community houses, and planted hundreds of hectares of mangrove forest in the central coastal region. Chairman Phan Van Qui is also the founding member of Nghệ An Benevolent Foundation for the Gifted and Vietnam Martyr Families Support Association. Until now, he and his corporation has contributed approximately 100 billion dong to sponsor charitable and social activities all over the country. Many programs of Mr. Phan Van Qui were recognized and highly appreciated, such as Deep Gratitude, the legendary of Chuang Sun, Gratitude to Comrades, the title of Uncle Ho's Soldiers, Nghệ An Benevolence, Rural Vocational Training, and Defense Industry. Being close to him, I realized that he is a modest man, does not like to talk about himself. He does not use smartphones, luxury cars, and brands. In his shirt pocket, he always has a ballpoint pen and a white sheet of paper to note down valuable lessons from his clients and partners, or ideas that spring to his mind in every journey and step he takes. I also notice that behind the portrait of a hero and a successful businessman is a profound poetic soul, just like the poems he wrote on Chuang Sun Trail. Across streams, climbing hills, cleaving through high clouds, my truck journeys through the night, whying birds calling to greet us, and the unstoppable singing, the singing of my own heart.